there wasn't much eye contact in general. Most people try to avoid eye contact with us, and that was just kind of what I noticed off the bat from natural reactions.
Also, one of the guys, I catched up with him, and I kind of interviewed him, and I asked him how he felt. He said that he saw it kind of as a compliment. He did seem kind of uncomfortable at the same time too, but he said if we continued to catcall him or like follow him, he would feel uncomfortable. But let's see, and the women from Subway who were sitting nearby, afterwards we went up to them and we asked them what they thought about it and kind of explained the experiment to them. And one of the ladies, she actually saw us as being like hot. She said, you guys are hot. And I was like, do you mean that in like being confident? She was like, yeah. So she saw it as like us being confident. But Sidney actually asked her if like what if a guy was sitting there doing that, and she was just like, I wouldn't really see it as very different, because it does happen a lot.
And for my reactions, at first when I got out of the car to come into campus, wearing makeup itself was slightly uncomfortable. I did feel people's attention kind of towards me. It was more of the fact that I was self-conscious of myself that I had makeup on and I was a man. But the fact most people did not really notice. And as Trey and I were conducting the experiment, people would only notice as I initiated the conversation, and about 2 minutes into the conversation they would start to notice. And afterwards, when Trey would ask them the questions, they would say that the makeup itself was not an issue, that if a guy wanted to wear makeup, it's their choice and it's fine. During the experiment itself, it was really a state of blank-mindedness. It just, went into the actual experiment and, asked people, just random people, to gauge their expressions. And and then as the final reactions that I have seen was that the men, as Trey and Sidney were talking about, were much more defensive in the fact that when I approached them, they were taken aback and they did not know what to do. They totally avoided eye contact whenever I did make eye contact. The women were actually quite pleasant. They were, as Trey mentioned it before, they accepted it, and they were very receptive of the fact that I had makeup, and it did not bother them at all, nor was it considered any type of sexual advance. Trey?
Hey, as far as my personal reactions are concerned, since I wasn't the one who wore makeup, I took on the bystander role for our presentation. So before, I felt mostly concerned for Andrew, considering that I had no idea how people would respond to him wearing makeup. So I was sort of defensive on his behalf. He felt comfortable by the time I met up with him at the EUC. So his confidence reassured me. During the presentation, while we were conducting the experiment, I was one instigating him to engage with individuals, since I knew that he was confident at that point, especially when it came to female respondents. I felt they'd be the most receptive, and come to find out they actually were. Especially the one girl at the food court, she was approaching us, and I had him go talk to her. I asked him, go get her phone number just to spur up a conversation. And when he approached her, for our sake, it was magic. He approached her, he smiled, he grinned, he engaged. He asked her, "How are you doing? Where are you going off to?" She gave perfectly normal responses as to if anyone had asked her that question. They exchanged phone numbers, and I interviewed her afterwards. She told me that she didn't notice him wearing makeup at first, but when she did, she wasn't taken aback. She was receptive of it, and she might have even liked him. So as far as our experiment is concerned, I think Andrew did very well in breaching the breaching the gender norm that men cannot wear makeup. But afterwards, we both felt confident, me and Andrew. I thought he done well, and I thought the people who responded, I guess, opposite of how I expected them to. I thought they would be dismissive. I thought they wouldn't want to talk to him, but the opposite happened. They were willing to have a conversation with them. They engaged. They told him what they were into. They told him what their goals were. Even one guy who was sitting on his own, he actually engaged with them, asking Andrew what he would want to do with himself after college. This was the same individual who thought he was gay when Andrew approached the man. So I guess he wanted to play along with them to further understand Andrew's agenda. So you want to go on?
Yep. So my reactions before the experiment, I was honestly a little anxious. I wasn't anxious about how the women would react. I was more anxious about, not the women, the men. I was not anxious about how men would react. I was more anxious about how women would react. Honestly, I guess that was me expecting that women would be more quick to respond like aggressively or more easily offended by it, possibly. And that could be due to the fact that women are typically the victims of catcalling. And also during I had some anxiety, but once we started it wasn't too difficult, but honestly the hardest part, I think for both Amy and I, was not laughing. After we complimented people, I think that was our way of kind of dealing with the uncomfortableness. Like, granted, a lot of people, at least the men, did react by laughing at us a little bit at first, and so I think it's funny the fact that we reacted with laughter. It just shows that we were a little uncomfortable breaching this norm, and so laughing at it was the best way to kind of overcome that. And then afterwards, when we kind of discussed the interviews with people's reactions, I definitely noticed some patterns in gender expectations. For example, the subway women that we talked about, they saw us, like Amy said, as being confident or hot. And when I asked them how they would feel if it was men, they said they would, see it as normal. And one of the women actually said, she was like, that she thought that the men did react differently because, they're not used to the shoe being on the other foot. And she liked that we were doing that because she was like, wanted to point out how men are totally fine with making women uncomfortable like that, but when the role is reversed and women are the ones, catcalling